Hello, everyone, for another episode of the LINCAST for the first time in 2021. I am here again with our CEO, Philip Reisner, and our CEO, Brian Hellman here. How are you guys? How was the holiday season for you?
Busy, but good.
Yeah, good. The holiday break. Although, the lockdown changes everything, but yeah, good.
Yeah, I should say busy at the office, not necessarily busy in my personal life.
So, since the holiday season is not too busy for releasing new software, but I know our developers worked hard to release new versions of LINSTOR and DRBD, even in the holiday season. And I want to thank for all the hard work that they are doing in their homes, in our offices for this meeting. All right, let's start with LINSTOR. All right, so we have another release in January, which is 1.11.1, a lot of ones. And it's mostly fixes. There is no new features in it, but it's like, I didn't count, but I think it's like 7 fixes in a row. So for everyone else using like LINSTOR out there, we highly suggest you to update it to the newest versions, because one of the bugs might hit you and you might not know that. Another update from the LINSTOR side is, as you know, we have a LINSTOR for the Kubernetes. It has an operator, and we even released a LINSTOR HA controller for Kubernetes in December. And we have a new release for that, which is 0.1.2. And that is also including one small bug. And there's no new features for the HA controller too.
You mean a bug fix?
Sorry, bug fix, yeah. Sorry for that.
Hopefully we don't introduce any new bugs.
Yeah. And maybe we did, and we will realize in the new releases. All right, Phil, I guess you have something in your table about the LINSTOR HA controller. And for the audience, let me do the introduction, then you might go into the technical details. So normally, we can create the LINSTOR HA LINSTOR controller HA cluster with pacemaker. There is a ways to do it, but Phil thinks that it's not too convenient to have a HA controller with pacemaker, so he has another idea for that. And I think he and his developers are currently working on that. The microphone is onto you now.
Yeah, Yusuf, thanks for that. Well, first of all, let me clarify, there are so many LINSTOR HA controllers, right?
Yeah.
So there is, and there's so many levels to it. So one thing is, when you run LINSTOR together with Kubernetes, then the LINSTOR controller itself needs to be HA. That's covered with Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Then there is a LINSTOR controller for HA controller for Kubernetes that helps you with keeping the failover time short if one of the Kubernetes nodes fails and one of your stateful deployments or replicated sets fails with that node, that gets restarted in a timely manner, like with less than a minute. And then LINSTOR can also be used without Kubernetes. For example, it might be used together with OpenNebula, or together with Proxmox, or together with OpenStack. And in these cases, there is no Kubernetes around it that will keep the LINSTOR controller itself HA. And so, as Yusuf already mentioned, we have a document, a blog post describing how you would use Pacemaker to keep it HA in that. But Pacemaker is a great cluster manager, but it also, with lots of power comes a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
And here we came up with the idea to build a, let's call it a mini cluster. So it's a super small service. So the whole thing has like less than 4 kilobyte, and that even includes the packaging. And it all started off as a proof of idea, proof of concept, written in Python. And now in these days, it is rewritten in Rust, and that is what we will release. And what it does is it takes a DRBD resource and you give it a few systemd unit files. And let's say the first systemd unit files mounts some DRBD device to var lib LINSTOR, and the second systemd resource file starts the LINSTOR controller. And what the mini cluster does is, if the node that currently was running the controller crashes or gets isolated from the other nodes, one of the remaining nodes in the partition with the majority of the nodes will start the controller again. So pretty easy.
Yeah, it's definitely
okay.
useful.
So that requires 3 nodes then at least, I assume, so an odd number?
Yes, it requires 3 nodes at least.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. And let's hope that we have that feature in close future.
And the benefit to that is that you're still able, like if your primary node HA or your primary LINSTOR controller dies, then you can still add and remove resources once the new node takes over, correct?
Yes, the new controller comes online within like maybe 10 to 20 seconds. That's just the time it takes to start the controller. And as soon as it's online, you have back all the management functions like creating resources, taking snapshots, resizing them, etc.
Cool.
Okay. And let's jump into the upcoming features of the LINSTOR that we are developing. And actually, the last one Philip mentioned was also in this category, but whatever. So another LINSTOR new feature is a verifying algorithm mechanism is changing. And maybe Brian, do you want to explain it to us?
Yeah, so historically, when you want to verify your DRBD resources, there's an algorithm that you have to pick, and you manually configure your DRBD resources through a configuration file, and you have to set that statically. With this new feature, the LINSTOR cluster will actually communicate between itself and the other peers and determine what the best algorithm is to use. And then if it goes through the list and determines everybody can support several algorithms, it will test to see which one is the most efficient in the cluster. So you can verify your resources much quicker than you would prior. And then it's also all automated. So you don't have to do anything. It just works, which is the way it should be.
And Philip, I think this feature is ready already, and it will be released in the next version of LINSTOR. Am I right, or? it still needs some development?
No, it's already on master, so it will be released when they tag a new release. Yeah.
Okay, so this is already completed. And another one regarding to LINSTOR is as our customers knows that LINSTOR is now capable of doing the snapshot shipping. And right now, one of our developers is developing to snapshot shipping into S3 targets. And by doing that, we are hoping to give the power of taking backups for the LINSTOR resources. And this is actually a two-step development for us. The first step is to put these resources into S3. And when we completely finish that, and we are hoping to add another feature to the LINSTOR, which is like exchanging, like migrating resources between the LINSTOR clusters. And this will be ready after this one finishes. Yeah. And I believe a lot of people in the community are waiting for this backup feature because at least they need to know that they have a way to get backup for their resources. And people try to do their own systems to get backups for the LINSTOR resources. And now we will be supporting in-house without any third party or something else. Yeah. And Phil, I think in the first backup, it's like doing the initial volume and then like the deltas, right? Is that working that way?
Yes. So snapshot shipping. So when you start it, it starts with doing like a complete backup, a full backup of the volume into an S3 object. And then it will only put their snapshot deltas on the time pace you configure in LINSTOR. And then you can also configure that it should take another full backup after so many days. And you will be able to configure how long it keeps all that. So, you know, like keep 4 complete backups for me and take an incremental every hour or every day and keep it for weeks. And so you will be able to do all that. And for the snapshot deltas, it uses either the snapshot deltas between thin LVM snapshots or the snapshot deltas between CFS snapshots. So it relies on the capabilities of the stack and literally just orchestrates them.
That's cool.
So the idea behind this is if you have a multi-site LINSTOR cluster or multiple LINSTOR clusters in different sites, should one of those sites go down, you can just restore to your offsite replica and be back up and running?
Yes, so that's step one of the feature. So you have your backup to S3 and you can restore from S3. And then the second step we want to do is that you can connect 2 LINSTOR clusters with this kind of mechanism so that the volume is initially shipped once and then only the deltas get shipped over the wire. And here we don't need to ship full backups at a later point in time because when the target is a LINSTOR cluster itself, it will apply the delta immediately. So it's a little different than the backup because with the backup, you keep all the history for the time frame you select. With the shipping between LINSTOR clusters, your target volume will be as up to date as possible, but it's clearly a asynchronous replication being behind. Yeah, it's something else than DRBD online replication.
And is that includes like the LINSTOR controllers database to S3?
No, it's just about the volumes.
Just about the one.
And yeah. So
maybe we can add that too in the future. So we have a backup for that too, right?
Right. Still room for more work.
Okay. I'm done with the LINSTOR for this LINCAST. These are the news for the January. And we have a Piraeus. I'm spelling correct, right, Philip? I'm trying to spell it like 1 year now, and I'm always doubt about if I'm telling it correctly. It's Piraeus. Okay.
It's a port, right? It's a port near Athens.
Yeah.
So you're closer to it than I am.
Okay. Okay, so we mentioned like the LINSTOR for Kubernetes, which is actually the naming is LINBIT SDS for the Kubernetes. And we have a open source upstream of LINBIT SDS in the Kubernetes, which name is Piraeus. And Philip was working on incubating into CNCF lately. And as far as I know, it is now accepted into the sandbox, and it's on its way to incubate into CNCF. Philip, can you give us some details about this whole process?
Yeah, so the process is still running, so it's not yet arrived in the sandbox, but it started, and that's the important point. And yeah, Piraeus is the collection of the CSI driver for LINSTOR, the operator for LINSTOR, so the Kubernetes operator, the Stork driver, and something else. Yeah, and the packaging. So the packaging of LINSTOR controller as container, the packaging of LINSTOR satellite as container, and also the DRBD module injector. And it can not only inject the DRBD modules, but also the other modules that might be used by LINSTOR, like NVMe or Fabrics initiator and target, and maybe some more. So all that is Piraeus. So you can say in essence, it is everything that connects LINSTOR with Kubernetes. And so that's multiple open source projects. And this whole Piraeus effort that is now going to CNCF, and we are in the process of getting it in a sandbox, and we are excited about it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and we had a new release in DRBD in the January, which was 9.0.26, and then we did this 27, which includes a really small hotfix for 26. So the number is 27 right now, and it's including mostly fixes. Again, there is no new features as far as I know. But did I miss anything, Philip?
Yeah, right. It's mostly fixes, and we a lot of work went into this. Well, strictly speaking, there is a tiny new feature. It is that now DRBD devices support the blockdev set read-only command. And that's like an ancient command in Linux, around since probably, I don't know, 25 or 30 years. and which you can use as administrator's root, and you say like set a flag in Linux saying, okay, this block device is read only. Okay, now we support that from Linux in DRBD as well.
Okay.
And we did that not just only for fun. Actually, one of the features in the Kubernetes integration uses that, and I think it's the live migration for block volumes in Kubernetes. Yeah, and yeah, a huge pile of fixes, and then a minor glitch happened with the live migration between diskful nodes, and this is the reason why we had to do another release just like a day later or 2 days later. And
So-
of course, we added that to the test suite in the moment.
What's the purpose behind the read-only flag? What does that provide any benefit? Or like what does that allow you to do that we couldn't do before?
Yeah, since we have auto promote in DRBD, and that's enabled by default, you know that in the moment a process comes around and opens def DRBD for writing, DRBD promotes to primary. And there might be situations where you don't want that.
Okay.
And so one way would be to, change the DRBD config and turn off auto promote, but actually you want to have auto promote later, right? And then there is this, let's say, Linux standard way of doing it, and that's the blockdef --set read only command. And all the other block devices in Linux support that. Now we added support for DRBD, so it's sitting there in secondary mode. You just do blockdef set read only of that device, and then it cannot auto promote because it's set to read only, right? So it's really a minor thing, but it's there now.
After 20 years, there is still a great room of improvement in the software. Every day, a new thing is coming to our tables, and we need to find a way to integrate it. And we still a great way to walk because because of it.
Yeah, so maybe something I can point out about the 26 and 27 release is that, again, from one of our customers, we were challenged by performance questions, right? So the story always begins with the customer comes along and said, look, we have a possible project, but DRBD needs to do, I don't know, 400,000 IOPS on this box loaded with NVMe drives. And then while doing all these performance tests, we were just like a little bit below that bar, and we said, okay, challenge accepted. Let's find that bottleneck. And yeah, Joel of our team, he spotted it, and it was on a place we didn't expect. It was not on the primary, but on the secondary of DRBD. And there we had some lock contention. We never considered that this might become the bottleneck one day, and it was identified and fixed. And so now we got there, and I think we were able to go above the 400,000 IOPS mark in this specific benchmark. And while talking about that, it brings to my attention what we are planning in the near future. We want to release with the next cycle in DRBD, so DRBD 9028. At the same day, we want to release DRBD 9.1.0 then. So start a new, let's say, major branch. And on that major branch, we will have a huge number of performance improvements we have been working on since years now. And since they are, let's say, a little bit disruptive, we don't want to add them into the 9.0 stable branch, but begin a new branch.
So
Do you have a timeline for that?
Yeah.
Is it 6 months, 8 months? Roughly?
No, it is like in a few weeks. So let's say somewhere in February.
Oh,
Then
well,
we
that's
have-
exciting.
Then we have a lot of things to talk in the next meeting, right?
Yes.
We have full of features in the next meeting. Okay.
Right. And I think Brian suffers from that preparations because the servers where this main testing is done is located in his server room, right?
Yeah, I can hear them from my office now. They're extremely loud. But it's all right. It's for the better. It's for the good of the cause.
So what will happen to the 8th branch, Phil? Are we going to keep support that?
Well, it's in deep freeze already, right? So we support the customers that run it, but it doesn't receive any updates any longer. And with this switch from 9.0 to 9.1, this implies that the 9.0 branch will see an end of life, probably by the end of 2021. And by the time everybody has switched to 9.1 anyways, right?
Get the performance updates.
Exactly. You get a free lunch, so why don't you take it?
Exactly.
People are really conservative when it comes to upgrade their versions. It's really hard to make people to upgrade their highly important servers. They don't want to upgrade. They don't want to disturb the current infrastructure, but it's necessary. I don't know. It's a question mark to me always. On the other hand, I understand them because I had a firewall in my infrastructure and I updated into the new stable one. And it turns out now it's not working. The nuts are not working. So I can't do a forwarding into my machines. And there is a way to downgrade it, but it's really painful. So I kind of understand this fear, but that's not happening for DRBD because we always support rolling updates. And I think we can do downgrades too, right, Phil? If they don't like it, they can just go down from, let's say, 9.1 to 9.0, 27 or 28. Is that possible? Is that easy to do it?
Yes, it's protocol compatible.
The only thing that they will miss is the new features, like maybe new performance or.
Yeah, in February there won't be any differences in features or in look and feel. So 9.1 will be like a drop-in replacement for the 9.0 module. So it talks the same protocol, it talks the same API to user space, it feels and behaves the same.
Okay.
Well, maybe the only difference, it might be a little faster.
And
that's the purpose.
Yeah. Okay, one last news about DRBD, and then I will jump into the social updates for this month. And that's the new upcoming feature for DRBD setup, which is a command line tool to manage the DRBD resources in the Linux machines. And right now, I think it will be in the new release. And we are adding the renaming the resources. So from the DRBD setup command line, the consumers can now able to rename their resources, so they don't have to do it by hand. All right. So we had a great Open Nebula webinar this week. It was great, and one of our customers, Vedos company, jumped into that webinar with us, and they even do a demo with their, I guess, 600 LINSTOR nodes, right? I'm telling correctly, yeah.
Yep.
And thousands of resources, and it was great. And I will try to put the link below the video so people can reach out and watch it. It's explaining the great integration with LINSTOR and Open Nebula, so you can have your hyperconverged infrastructure with these two open source platforms, which is really great. And we even have the Open Nebula cluster in our own small data center, right? Okay, I think this is it. This is the news for the January. And do you have anything to say, Brian, for this January?
Nothing too much. We're looking forward to that 9.1 release. We've been doing a lot of testing on that, and hopefully we can shut those servers off soon. No, but in all seriousness, though, that 9.1 release is gonna be great. We put a lot of work into that, and I think it's about time that it comes out.
Okay. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Philip, do you have anything to say?
I shared all my news, so looking forward to do this in about a month.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This LINCAST for January 2021, and see you in the next month. Goodbye.